I was just, ha, ha. I was counting down. Hello, hello.
We had a jumpy countdown, but
Now
we got
it's
here.
real
Are
hello.
you here?
Hi, guys. Hi. How you doing? We are here on, we hope, in the new technology that you saw that our topic today is slow miracles, because last time it didn't change and someone had to email us.
Oh, yes. The title stayed the same. We're working with the magical technology.
But we're here. Oh,
hey, I see you.
It's
guys.
first on. Hello.
Oh, hello.
And Mary, that's
all
with
right.
the two of them here. Oh, no, here's Monica and Wendy. Wendy, this is different. You are from New Zealand. You haven't been in, like, Wendy from Guelph used to be our first person up every time. But
as long as there's a Wendy.
She came from New Zealand.
Yeah.
She came from New Zealand, I'm telling you. And Michelle and Christy and Mary and Michelle again, Lucy and it's fabulous.
Everyone's here. They just here. Everyone's here.
Does it say what the numbers were? Because
no,
we always start when we get to 100, but it doesn't say it anymore.
Do you guys feel like you're 100?
After last week, we talked about aging. Maybe they all feel like they're 100 because 100 feels great. Is what we learned last week. Be 100 and be great.
Just be 100.
Yeah. Here's how you live a long time. Be 100. I'm 100.
I'm 300.
Okay. Hi, Trisha. Hi, Jackie. Hi, Kay. You might as well get going.
Well, let's do this. I feel like you're 100.
Yeah, I am 100. Okay.
Have fun, you guys. This is going to be a corker.
All right. So, you guys, this is the thing. I write about miracles a lot, about magic and how these amazing things have happened in my life, and they have. And I write them out, and I'm like gobsmacked. Oh my gosh, this miraculous thing happened. I thought about it, and then it came to pass and was manifested. And then I write about it. And the problem is that people read that and they think, oh, if I do this, then tomorrow I can make a miracle. And I always forget, because in hindsight, it looks like that. But when you're actually creating what one might call magic, it feels incredibly slow. So I have the amazing opportunity of seeing a miracle unfold in kind of time-lapse photography. So there's a miracle that started about 13 years ago. And boy, did we ever get together and envision it, a bunch of people. And now it's just gone kablooey, and it's changing the world. And I get to look into it every few months, either when I go to Africa or when my dear friend Kate Grock, the miracle worker, comes to visit us in Pennsylvania. So here she is. This is Kate, her own self, the miracle worker. And okay, I'll let you talk in a minute. But first, I just have to introduce. This is a woman who, as just a young, almost just a student, like she started when she was so little, like she was a child, wanted to revolutionize rural education in Africa. And when I met you, it was still kind of just a dream, right? Just an idea. And then was it before or after I met you that you guys started building that one little school building?
I think it was about the same time.
It was about the same time.
It all sort of happened at one crossroads.
Did you adopt Maya? When did you adopt Maya?
A little bit afterwards. So it had just started to begin.
So I met you before. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So Maya is part of the magic. But Kate was just starting out. And the whole idea was, education in rural Africa is not
dysfunctional, to say the least.
Yeah. I'd been into these classrooms with kids crammed in 3 to a desk, where the students were just staring out the windows, and the teachers looked completely overwhelmed and were completely overwhelmed. And the energy was just dead and nothing good was happening, really. They were trying. And then Kate came in, this one person, and said, I'm gonna revolutionize this whole thing. And you started out by building what they call a creche.
Yeah, like a preschool.
It's a preschool.
Yeah.
Get them young is where
get them early.
So tell the story of how people talk about, if I just had $5 million, I could go in, I could make some change in Africa. And they try. And let me tell you, I've studied the sociology of development. Usually it fails, like badly. instead of waiting for $5 million, how much did you start with?
We definitely didn't have $5 million. We had probably about $5,000 and a very big idea and a lot of young people who could help us and just got started.
So they're in this village in the middle of kind of a barren part of South Africa. I mean, it wasn't barren before the white farmers came in and the cattle grazed it to death, but now it's pretty barren. And it was in this village with not a lot of money.
No, not a lot of anything.
Yeah. There weren't big hotels or anything. There was a store.
Yes. There's one, yeah.
And she had literally dirt and a borrowed brick maker.
We did. I think there's so many wonderful stories from that moment. And the one was that we got loaned a brick maker by the team, because part of the work was also to create jobs for everybody and let everyone work together. And so, yes, we could have bought bricks, but we didn't have $5 million.
Right.
And two, we had a lot of people. And so we created our own bricks. So we measured out sand and we measured out cement. And we did the crazy thing where we decided that the machine wasn't good enough. We'll just mix it all with our hands. And we had these little piles, and then you put the pile into the machine and it sort of bashed things together and out popped a brick. And we created rows and rows and rows of bricks. We learned wonderful patience, because you have to wait for the bricks to dry, because you can't build with wet bricks. You try that and then you can't. And then you slowly grow.
And then they put up one whole wall with weeks of effort, and then it was off true. So they had to.
We learned very early that you have to be very specific in the first few layers of the wall, otherwise it heads off. And I remember one of the builders came to me and said, "Kate, your wall is heading to the Cape," which means it was heading west from where we were. And so we had to, and I think that was one of the biggest first lessons is, we had to take down the whole wall. And you're so devastated because you think you're such a rock star because you built a whole wall in a day. And then you take the wall down and the next day you build it, but you build it better.
Yeah.
And, that's 16 years ago and the creche is still there.
It's still there. Yeah. And okay, cut to today. I just asked Kate, we were sitting on the patio talking. I said, how many campuses do you have now? Now we're talking these learning centers that are now being built across Africa are these beautiful open spaces where they put trees
definitely
inside.
Not built by us.
Not
built by professionals.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so you have 5 campuses.
Yeah, 5 in one province and then the original one in where we started.
And let me tell you about what it's like to go to one of these. I went to one of them that's near Deluzy, which is one of my favorite places. And Kate, that's where I met her. But I went to this huge, beautiful building full of like state-of-the-art tablets and computers, and all the wires are put together in this big artificial tree that goes up over the room, because in Africa, traditionally, you learn under a tree. So there was a circle of teachers there, and some of the teachers were people who had originally been builders or janitorial work, but they had gone through enough education themselves that they were now ready to teach, and not halfway. They're like really good. And they all sang together. I cried for an hour without stopping. They all stood there and sang this angelic music. Like if you listen to Paul Simon's the choirs in South Africa in Graceland, and it's just beautiful. And then they went and stood by the doors. And I thought, what are they doing? And it was like everyone was sort of bracing, like battle stations. And a bus came up and the doors opened and a flood of children like shot out of the bus. Yeah. So fast and like burst into that room and scattered to the computers and everything. And what do they do there?
So I mean, first of all, they come running into the barn. We call it the barn because it was a banana packing shed. And what's really interesting is that we, as a teacher, I keep going, stop running in the corridors. Everyone says don't run in the corridors, and then you think children are running to learn. This is a good thing. Let them run. And so they come in and they are working on, they basically come and play games. So they come and they play English games, maths games. And so we've gamified all the foundational learning that they need to do. And so without even knowing that they're learning, they are setting forth, which is a sneaky trick, but it's a great one.
It took Kate to figure out, oh, children learn by playing. We were just talking about it. You know, I recite things at them for 6 hours a day and they don't learn it. So I recite at them for 2 more hours in the evening and they still don't get it.
And then I just get louder and they still don't get it.
What is wrong with these children? And Kate goes, oh, what is wrong with this system? So, like, what is happening, like, with the test scores and things? I know tests aren't everything, but like, these kids are doing well.
Absolutely. And I think what we've done is these youngsters are coming in, as we said, they're playing for 2 hours a week, but they're getting the building blocks for everything that they need.
Yeah.
And what's happening is then school becomes a far more enjoyable space because you start to succeed.
Yeah.
And so they start to succeed, and we see in a year sort of 20 to 30% increase in their English scores, their math scores, purely because they actually understand what they're doing.
Wow.
And for me, the most important thing we've turned on, they love learning again.
Yeah. Oh, they do.
They just love to learn.
They are obsessed. Yeah. Like, they can't be pulled away from what they're learning.
Exactly.
It's magic. Yeah. And we don't have Maya in the room with us right now, but she's a big part of the magic. She just turned 12. When I met her, she was like this
teeny. Me too. When she was teeny tiny.
Kate adopted Maya around the same time.
Yeah.
And she was the most beautiful, like, all eyes, right?
Yeah.
And you adopted her from a rural.
Yes, from where our first campus is, actually, in the Free State. And I think, you know, it was such an energizer for me, the Maya connecting into the story. The story had started.
Yeah.
But the story was slowly unfolding.
Yeah.
And I often, when she and I talk about it, she's like the igniter flame that just really, to have a young South African baby in my home and see her explode with just inputs and love and opportunity, and you want to get it to more young people.
We were talking about this. It buys you some street cred, because here you were raised under apartheid and now you're a multiracial family, and
overnight
and there's a magic to that is like, okay, everybody's on the same playing field, everybody's equal, everybody's valued, 100%. Everybody's loved, and it just is exploding. And I remember I went back when she was a year old, Maya, and we had this idea that we were going to run seminars in South Africa. I was going to run seminars with Bronwyn and Boyd Vardy, and we were going to bring in money from the first world to fund this project. And we were going to have people, and they were going to come change their lives. And we would do life coaching in the Bush Belt. And then we arranged it, and I was like, who's going to travel like 10,000 miles to do it?
Exactly.
This is insane. It's never going to happen. And it kind of got a slow start. For the first couple of years, it was like iffy. People were being invited very hard. But I remember getting on the plane after the first star. That's what we call the retreats, the star retreats. And Maya was a year old and so talkative. I think she was just over a year. And she said, "No, where are you going?" And I said, "Well, I have to go back to America. We're going to bring all kinds of new friends." And she stopped crying and she said, "Well, that's just fantastic."
Exactly. And so we did. It was fantasy, and now it's real.
And boom, here we are. And we've done how many stars? Like 25 now. Yeah. And I mean, it does take a lot of people have come through there. They've gone to volunteer. There are friendships, lifelong friendships happening. And it was like, bam! Except that it was day after day after day of people's hands in mud.
Yeah.
Putting together bricks to build a wall that had to be taken down
to be rebuilt,
put back up again. Exactly. And it was day after day of parenting and dealing, and a young single working mother life, which is, exhausting, even if you're as motivated as Kate. But wow, from this perspective, Maya's practically grown up. The learning centers
they're grown up.
And with 5 campuses now, 8,500 kids a week.
Yeah,
8,500 kids a week are being changed, and adults are getting literacy and numeracy too. So when I do get a chance to see Kate, which is about every 6 months, it's like everything is mushrooming so fast, and there is so much magic. I can't even. That first night in this little village called Philippolis, we were freezing cold in Kate's house. And we're
huddled around
we're huddled around this one little radiator. Like I had 9 blankets on, and we were shivering, going, "We will change South African education." And it happened, you guys. It's happening.
It's happening.
It's happening.
Yeah.
So what could you do if you dream huge and then start with your hands in the mud? You know, and we want you to write your questions about how you can create your own miracles if you want. Or we can just go on chatting, however you like. We can tell some okay, I'll tell a miracle story. Now we can start talking about what happens for reals, because it's true that you put your hands in the mud and you make the bricks in the wall. And then stuff happens that cannot be explained. And one of my favorite stories is this. I was with Kate's mother, and her name is Marie, Gogo Mo, which means grandmother Mo.
That's right.
And I met her when she was first starting to work as a teacher in this little village. And she said, "I'm 60 years old and I've just found my passion." And she was just lit up at 60. And she said, and by the way, an elephant has told one of the trackers that some of the kids in the village have disabilities and they're not making it to school. And the elephant is disabled. So the elephant was telling this to the tracker. And I was like, sure. Things like that happen all the time around here. So then later that day, I was having tea with someone on the deck where we now do all the star retreats. And she told me the story of this little elephant who was named Elvis. Some trackers saw Elvis soon after she was born. Turned out she was female. But she was born with a terribly deformed back half, basically. The pelvis was deformed, the legs, and they thought she will die immediately. And then she didn't die immediately, and they thought, well, the lions will kill her. No. What happened instead was this whole breeding herd of elephants began walking in a horseshoe formation with this little disabled elephant in the center. And when they came to something that was too hard for her to navigate, like a tree that was falling, they would lift her with their trunks.
And push her up the hills.
And push her up hills.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that is magical. And by the way, Mo did go house to house and found 2 little kids. Yeah. One of them I met, and now he's like this amazing and grown human being. But later that day, I was sitting on the deck where we would one day do the retreats, and out of the brush came a half-grown elephant with a terrible disability in the back legs, and made her way up a slope that is bare rock. There's nothing to eat. There's nothing up there for an elephant. But there I was on the deck, and I got down on my stomach and reached out my arm, and Elvis reached out her trunk to me, and we were not far apart at all, the 2 of us. And then her mother came out from the brush and came up on the rock and helped her turn and go back down, because she couldn't have done that.
Yeah, pushed it up.
And there was something about that, like the elephants were coming to bless this whole,
to get on the mission.
They were all on the mission. And so it's when you do the slow miracle that major magic comes to say, yep, you're right. You're on track. Everything wants to help you with this.
And I think it's interesting that there's a similar story. You start to get those messages that you're on track. And GWF has been, or Good Work Foundation has been a story like that the exact right people at every moment have come. The best people and the right people for that moment have always just arrived and knocked on the door and said, here's the next, let's go to the next step. And I think, when you talk about you seeing it in sort of time lapse, when you're in it, you sometimes think, oh my word, I'm doing nothing. I'm not getting anywhere. You're just doing the same thing over and over. And it's so good to sometimes just come out and look back and you go, oh my goodness, okay, we've moved to the next, to the new normal. How do we get now to the next one?
Yeah, you should maybe look back at your own life, at things that you may have thought weren't miraculous because they looked like they were happening slowly to you. But when you look back, you go, yeah, everything came to me at the right time. But I think you have to be willing to say, I have nothing but a big dream, and I'm going to jump in and roll up my sleeves anyway. Okay, so here's a question for Kate from Allie. Kate, how did you bring together the people to help you get started?
That's an interesting question. And actually what we did is we just got started. And then the people came. I think we didn't wait to gather people. It was quite an interesting one. So there were obviously a few of us who were talking about creating this preschool and building this preschool. We have some funny stories where Boyd Varty came and said to me, okay, where's the building crew? And I was like, that's us. And we had a do-it-yourself book on how to build and do plumbing. And we started. And I think that was the biggest thing. And we started building.
Yeah.
And when people see the commitment that you're doing, people join you. And we saw it again and again happen with Good Work Foundation.
Yeah.
So we just started teaching some children because they were there in the afternoon. And a week or so later, their principal came and said, what are you doing with those children? I want to bring the whole school. And then later, and I used to get a knock on my door from this friend of mine who's working with me, Crispin Vungwe from Zimbabwe. And he would say, I get a knock. We have a problem. I'm like, what's the problem? He goes, there's another school that wants to come. He says, but don't worry, it's just timetabling. And that's the sort of thing that happened. And I think sometimes if we wait too long for everybody to be on board, then it never happens. And if you wait for the plan to be perfect, it never happens. So if you just start, the right people join you. And also I think the big thing is to not be stuck on the plan. Because what we started with the plan and what it looks like now is not exactly the same. I mean, I could never have dreamed what's going on now. But every moment that we allowed people to join us, the right people to join us, or the community to say, this is where we'd like to go, it's really helped us to go exactly where we are. And I think that's been the biggest thing.
Be willing to take feedback from what's happening.
Absolutely.
I went to a grocery store once after I came back from doing the Star, and I was stocking up because we'd been gone a month. And the clerk said, wow, you've been gone. And I said, yeah, I did this thing. She started asking me, what were you doing? I do these Change Your Life safaris in Africa to help build schools. And she was like, how did you get that job? And I was like, I made it up. I made it up.
Exactly.
And a lot of people have said to us things like, I'll sweep the corners. I'll do anything. Like millionaires telling us, we'll do anything. It's like, just do it, man. So the energy of saying, I'm just going to start.
Yeah.
As long as something is really true in your heart. And I think that Kate has this enormous integrity. And I'm always talking about integrity. If you're coming at it from wanting to be rich and famous, these things don't tend to work as well. If you're coming at it from a place of genuine integrity, where you've got a fire in your belly and it won't let you go, and it's a passion, a genuine passion, that's part of the magic.
Yeah, and it won't let you do anything else.
Yeah, that's true.
Even when you don't want to do it, then it's in your head. So you just keep going.
If it won't die, then start serving it.
Exactly.
Okay. Donna wants to know, what's the greatest need Kate currently has in her work?
I think, that's a really good question. And it's probably changes day by day. But I think the biggest thing is now, as I said, the right people have always come at the right time. And we have a very interesting situation where we've grown really quickly. And as Mark said earlier, most of our staff and most of our young teachers have come through our system. So we've got young people who are newly facilitators or newly educators, and yet we're asking them to lead campuses and to manage and be leaders on these campuses. And so there's a lot of work, interestingly, we have almost like a parallel thing where we have beneficiaries, which are the children and the young people coming to class, but we also have a lot of work that's done with our staff. And so there's this like double sort of layer of work that needs to be done. But we really just see what's happening is, as we start to take the lid off these young people in the rural space, the potential is just enormous. I mean, I'm a firm believer that innovation comes from necessity, not from comfort. And so if we want to solve the world's problems, it's sitting right there, because they're sitting in the problem and they know what they need to get done. If the opportunity and the ability is sort of unleashed. And so the biggest need for us is always the connections that people have. We've met the most amazing people almost exactly at the right time, always, through people we know. And we want people to come and teach our young facilitators, come and teach, come and do. I mean, obviously it's a nonprofit, so we're always looking for funding. That's like a given for us,
right?
But it's more than that. It's now we've got this thing going. There is a model emerging that is really working. It's not in competition to any system, but it's coming alongside a system, but it's really starting to shift young people on a different path. So that's where we're heading.
Cool. Yeah. I wanted to say too that this is part of something Karen, one of my beloveds, wrote a sociological paper on this, on something called the Deluzy model, which is an idea, just modestly, to save the world. And the way we save the world is on the safari side, they're rebuilding landscapes. They're literally, it's good that we're having an animal come into the picture now, because the first thing is we repair the earth itself. We repair, well, I don't, but people repair the earth. They repair the water systems, then the plants come in, and then the animals
the expert has arrived.
The animals come back. But in order to keep things good for the animals, we need to educate people. So typically in industrializing countries, you get people who want to serve the human population, and they wipe out landscapes so that they can put up, say, housing for a lot more people. In other places, you have people who are environmentalists who are crunching people into smaller and smaller spaces so that there's more room for wildlife. Kate is on both sides. She's a biologist. She's a zoologist. Yep. She's phenomenal. She knows so much about the natural world. I mean, like, being around her is like having a walking encyclopedia with you. It's amazing. But like the love of the land, the love of the animals, hello, the love of the children, the love, and may I also say that people talk about, we want to vote in good policies and everything, but actually society, I don't know if politics is the way the world is going to be saved. I actually don't think it will.
No.
And I was just thinking today, as Maya put on her Halloween makeup and we were playing, one young woman adopting a tiny baby girl created this wave of energy that is changing thousands and thousands. I mean, that's 8,500 kids a week. But think of their families, extended families, the people they interact with. They're all being touched and changed by this, because by one young woman and a little girl.
Yeah, and I think that's how the world's going to change. The world changes in a small space, and as it ripples out, and we see the young people. Young people are changing.
They really are.
You know, they really are, and the wonderful thing where we are is that they don't change and want to move off and disappear. They change and want to bring back what they've learned, which is a really interesting thing. And, you know, you're talking about the wilderness and people, and, you know, we've started to talk about creating this ecosystem of learning and working. And that requires you to understand your role in the actual ecosystem of this planet. And I think there's an opportunity where we are, which is rural and close to Africa's wildest places.
Oh, yeah.
To really look at how do we navigate that route now differently? How do we not either have one or the other win, but how do we get it to actually work together?
Yeah. And it's people working, like, they husband the land because they're finding ways, you know, like with the stars, we found a way to make keeping the land wild benefit the people. So yeah, the whole experience kind of, there's a story that kind of sums it up for me. I was doing the star, and Kate was teaching, and Mo was going to drive with Karen from Deluzy to the Hazy View campus to help out. Karen wanted to do some volunteering, but they were held up because a pride of lions killed 2 zebra on the road. And they had to wait for the lions to finish eating 2 zebras before they could get to the volunteer work. So yeah, don't worry, they were in no danger.
Yeah, absolutely.
They just sat there enjoying the carnage.
Exactly.
It's a circle of life, folks, circle of life. So thank you for coming to talk to us about slow miracles that look, in cases we're growing so fast. And yet think about a miracle that takes 13 years to play out. You might think that looks slow, but start today and it will just go like that.
And it seems slow in the steps, but then when you look back, it's actually in the blink of an eye.
So where can you roll up your sleeves, build a brick, and start putting up a wall? People will come running to join you.
Exactly.
Thanks, you guys. We love you. Ro, you want to jump back in and say hi? Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. We love you. Bye.